Okay, so good morning. I want to welcome everyone here to Women's Press Collective's International Women's Day. The intrepid among us in this weather. So welcome to our celebration for 2022. My name is Lisa Daniel, and I am a full-time volunteer organizer, and I'm also the operations manager for Women's Press Collective. And we are very, very happy that we can be here together in person. This is WPC's 14th annual International Women's Day celebration. But last year we held our celebration virtually due to the pandemic. And we're very happy to be able to be here together today, while also taking public health precautions. So we want to first of all thank Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church for making it possible for us to be here. And and they are also providing a live stream option. So we do have some members joining us remotely today. So I want to thank the church again for making that possible. And I'd like to open our event by talking briefly about the significance of International Women's Day, which is actually on March 8th. That's the date of the holiday. And it's the celebration is, take off my mask, okay. It is celebrated officially in over 100 countries around the world, but it's not celebrated officially in the United States, despite that the inspiration for the holiday came from the militant organizing of low-income women workers here in the United States, but our government doesn't recognize the holiday. And in fact, it came from the militant organizing of women right here in New York City. On March 8th, 1908, 114 years ago, 15,000 women marched through the streets of Lower Manhattan. They were largely poor women working in the needle trades and the sweatshops of New York City. And many were immigrants. Many worked for piece rate pay. They worked long hours and lived in tenements. Their labor gained them barely enough to survive and support their families. But their labor supported and helped create the growing wealth of the manufacturing industries of a now industrialized, quote, new world in America. The women marched through the streets to demand shorter working hours, higher pay, an end to child labor, and the right to women's suffrage. 2 years later, in honor of these women's militancy, an international socialist conference in Copenhagen, Denmark, declared that March 8th would be International Women's Day. Yeah, that's worth clapping. So for those of you here today who are new to Women's Press Collective, we welcome you. And Women's Press Collective is an all-volunteer association with a growing membership of printers, writers, graphic artists, journalists, other media professionals, joining together with community and labor organizers, students, working women and men, and all of us without a voice in the mainstream corporate media. We join together to put the power of print media in the hands of those who are unrepresented and have the least access to resources needed to demand changes in the policies that affect our lives. Our roots come from the organizing efforts of working women. We were founded in 1982 by women with backgrounds in the organizing of women farm workers and home health care workers. The inspiration for Women's Press Collective came from the Second International Conference of Agricultural and Working Women, held in McAllen, Texas, which is a border town with Mexico, in 1981. Women came from both sides of the border. Poor women, without many resources, but the grassroots leadership women, they traveled to attend the conference, hosted by the Fighting Texas Farm Workers Union. They came to discuss strategy and position. Women from the Mine Workers Union in Kentucky, from farm worker organizations in the southwest of this country, campesina women from Mexico and Central America. These women, especially those from Latin America, brought with them very different perspectives than those being promulgated by the mainstream U.S. women's movement at that time. These women had seen international agribusinesses take their land. They'd seen their own governments operate in the interest of those foreign companies and those foreign agribusiness corporations. For campesina women, those issues were women's issues that affected their lives. The mainstream media didn't cover that conference, but Texas Farm Workers Union did in their own newspaper, El Cuamil, which we have a copy of at the literature table outside. Our founders saw the need for media production that would be in the hands of working women. That's where we started, and much of our early work involved publication support for organizations of farm workers and other workers not recognized under U.S. labor law. So our International Women's Day celebration today is to honor working women organizers. And we have some wonderful speakers and performers today who I'm very proud to introduce to you. But before I go further, I do want to acknowledge that we are celebrating together in a historic place where we sit right now. Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church was founded in 1857 as an abolitionist church, adding its strength to the struggle to abolish slavery in the United States. And in 1872, it was the first Presbyterian church to allow a female pastor to preach from the pulpit, which caused a great deal of controversy at the time. So we are here together today in a place with a long history of challenging oppression. WPC first met Lafayette Avenue Church in 1997. So as we enter our 25th year of friendship and partnership, I want to extend our sincere appreciation to the church for their long-standing support of WPC, including for providing this very beautiful sanctuary for our International Women's Day celebration for the 9th year this year. So we are going to start our event today with a performance by two very beautiful people and fabulous performers who we love very much. Janice Russell and Mike Weatherly have graced our International Women's Day celebration with their music for the past 9 years, since 2013. Even last year, when we had to celebrate virtually, they provided a performance from their home for our live streamed event. So we are very happy to be together with them in person today. Janice is a nationally known jazz and blues singer and a member of the Lafayette Avenue Presbyterian Church who has, since 2001, been the director of their inspirational ensemble, a multiracial interfaith choir based here at the church. Mike Weatherly is a Brooklyn-based, second-generation bassist who hails originally from the desert Southwest, and he is one of New York City's most sought-after bassists, known for his instrumental expertise as well as his vocal skills. So I'd like for everybody to put your hands together and give a big, warm welcome to Janice.
Thank you, Lisa. Oh, it's so good to be here. It's nice to be back and to have Women's Press Collective back after a couple years of everything that we've been through. It's nice to be able to get back together in person. And for the work that they do, we say thank you. And on this International Women's Day, I was thinking about, when I think about what songs I might do, I was thinking about a couple. There's, written by women or about women or whatever. So I came up with God Bless the Child. Because for those who don't have, some people are going to get. And then there's the rest of us. Sometimes you have to get it for yourself, like Women's Press Collective. And I was thinking about strong women and how many of us grew up with our grandmothers. I mean, that was one of the first strong women that we knew, our grandma. So I want to send these two songs out to all of us. Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible says, and it still is news that Mama may have, Papa may have. God bless the child that's got his own. That's got his own. You see the strong they get more, while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grade, but Mama may have, and Papa may have. God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Now, money you've got, you got lots of friends. You'll see them crowding round your door. But when it's all gone, when your spending ends, then they don't come no more. Rich relations give a crust of bread and such. You can help yourself if you don't take too much. Your mama may have, your papa may have, but God bless the child that's got her own, that's got her own. Oh, when you got money, you got so many friends. You'll see them crowding round your door. But when your money's gone, when your spending ends, then they don't come no more. Your rich relations may give you a crust of bread and such. Help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, and Papa may have. God bless the child that's got her own, that's got her own, that's got her own. Thank you. last. Might fall on a piece of glass. There might be snakes there in the grass. Grandma's hands. Grandma's hands soothe the local unwed mother. Grandma's hands used to ache and sometimes swell. Grandma's hands used to lift her face and tell her, she said, "Child, don't understand. I know what you've been through, man. Put yourself in Jesus' hands." Grandma's hands. Grandma's hands used to hand me a piece of candy. Grandma's hands picked me up each time I fell. Grandma's hands, oh, they really came in handy. She said, "Alice, don't you whip that girl. Now what you wanna spank her for? She didn't drop no alcohol. I don't have my grandma anymore. When I get to heaven, I will go." Grandma's hands. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh. Thank you.
Okay. So as I mentioned, Janice directs the Inspirational Ensemble here at Lafayette Avenue Church. And both Janice and Mike perform as part of the ensemble. So one way to hear them again is to check the church website and come back right here to LAPC. Okay, so those of you who've attended our International Women's Day celebrations over the past 5 years and who've participated with WPC over that time have heard about or even been involved in our work to develop WPC's permanent home. You heard, some clapping there in the audience, so you heard about the fixer-upper building that we moved into in December of 2017, and all the renovation work we had to do to turn it into a functional press center. You heard about the Renovation Progress, volunteers tuck pointing the stone foundation of the building, framing walls, and putting up sheetrock. We first started with our office area where we have space for design training sessions, writer training sessions, administrative work. 80% of that renovation work was done by volunteers and donated supplies. When that was done, we began to work on the parts of our program in the new space. Then we tackled the most challenging part of the renovation, renovating the part of the facility for our press room. With the aid of a volunteer architect and structural engineer, donations from building supply and paint companies, financial contributions from individuals, unions, businesses, and family foundations, we were able to get the major structural renovation done and pass the city inspections. But we still had to turn that space into a home for our presses and bindery equipment, creating a space capable of serving our membership, serving the community, and playing a pivotal role in building independent press. So, the tradeswomen of New York City and their unions joined with us to make that vision a reality. Some of those tradeswomen are here with us today. So I want to take this opportunity now to thank all of the tradeswomen who helped us renovate our press room, and their brothers too, some of whom also volunteered. But it was tradeswomen who led the way. Members of the District Council of Carpenters, led by women carpenters, volunteered on the weekends in August and September, and even into October of 2020. to do the sheetrocking, including complicated soffits and odd corners and a 12-foot ceiling that had to be sheetrocked. We had a lot going on. And then later the baseboard. So here today with us from the District Council of Carpenters, we're really happy that you're here. We have Sanad Wadsworth, who is I'll just add also Sanad's grandmother, as we were honoring grandmothers this year, Caroline Gray. We're really happy you're here. We also have Emily Hoffman up there. And Alexandra Guadalupe, there she is. So, and then, did I miss anyone? Okay, so we have the tradesmen from the District Council of Carpenters here. And they are women working in what is called, at least for women, non-traditional work. And these are the women building the buildings of New York City where we live. So we thank you. So for our press room, which they helped with, once the walls were built, then we had members of the Women's Committee of DC9. So the District Council of Painters and Allied Trades volunteered and did all of the interior painting for our press room. So the walls, the ceilings, soffits and all the funny little corners, 12-foot tall ceilings, working as a team to get it done. So here today with us from the Women's Committee of DC9 are Veronica Luciano, Crystal Garcia, Rosa Del Rex, and Arlinda Delgado. What's that? Janelle. Okay. Okay, awesome. So we want to thank our sisters in the trades for helping WPC to get our press room online and ready to serve. Our new two-color printing press is now installed in that space that you helped renovate. It's running. We're doing weekly press training sessions, printing projects with many different community-based organizations through our free-of-charge benefit program, which is a core to how we build independent press that's really coming from the community. We are now the only place in New York City where you can learn offset press operation. It happens while we're putting the power of the press in the hands of the people. So, I also want to extend a special thank you and hello and shout out to one of the women carpenters who couldn't be with us here today, who is also very pivotal to the work. It's Tammy Rivera. And she wanted to be here today but could not because she is taking care of her mother today, who is about to go in for a procedure. So we want to make sure and send a shout out to Tammy. So when we talk about buildings and our building in our press room, it always raises the issue of money. Funny how buildings do that. So even with all of that our members and supporters have done as volunteers to make our press room a reality, the building also does require things that take cash money. And we do need your help with that too. Right now we're having HVAC installed in the office and the press room so that our volunteers and members can be comfortable when working and to maintain the correct temperature and humidity for the paper, the ink, the press chemicals, for all of that to work properly. So to complete the press room, we still also need floor covering, shelving, electrical work to connect the paper cutter. If any of y'all know electricians, let me know, because we've got some electrical work for the paper cutter. So, as a quick reminder, WPC takes no government funding or any other funding that comes with strings attached. That's what keeps us independent. We're supported only by donations. And that allows us to be free to advance the voice and the leadership of low-income working women and others without worrying about the demands of funding sources. We are supported only by membership contributions and donations, That's what keeps us independent. So when we have a large and costly project, we need lots and lots of generous membership contributions and donations. So if you left a donation at the door today, or gave a donation in advance of the event, you are helping already, and we thank you. And we will need more than what ends up in the donation can today. So please see me after the event if you feel you can make a substantial contribution to this project. We can work out the details of how to make that happen. Or drop another donation of any amount in the can, it all helps. If each of us here were to put $100 in the can, we've got the cost covered. You can also help with raising funds. Some people, I don't know if anybody remembers rent parties. Anyway, rent parties. So you can fry up some fish, have a party. Any donations in the can can cover those costs, or whatever kind of party you like to do. This raises money and helps us reach more people and spreads the word about WPC's work to advance the voice and the leadership of working women. Now, while it takes money to build independent media, the most important thing it takes is people. People are the most important thing in our organization. It is what makes us strong. So I now want to introduce you to someone who's going to be our next speaker. She is one of those people who's been with WPC for 17 years. She has volunteered her time in so many different ways to do so many different things that WPC must do to build independent press. And she will tell you a little about the ways that you can volunteer and make a difference. So I'd like you to give a warm round of applause for Vanetta White.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hello, my name is Vanetta White, and I have been a member of Women's Press Collective since 2005. And over the years, I have volunteered on speaking engagements, literature tables, phone-in, canvassing, mail-ins, writer training sessions, and much more. I just won so many hats for Women's Press Collective.
So true.
And I have found myself very blessed to find an organization like WPC when I was at my lowest point in life. Volunteering with WPC has made me a stronger person and very aware of what's going on, especially in today's society regarding the job market and how it seems as though the government only caters to the very wealthy. While becoming an advocate for working people who are struggling financially has turned me into a more caring person and also a person who is more conscious of what is going on in today's society regarding working people. I recommend WPC for everybody here today. What better way to make a difference in the world than to work together, because the truth is none of us can make it alone. Strength in numbers can really make a great impact on each and every person's life. Once people are assured that they're not alone, this can help them to feel better and move them to also want to help those who may be even less fortunate than they are. Acknowledgement like this can improve the lives of many as long as they are willing to join in and stand up for what is right. We need you to volunteer. WPC is 100% volunteer. That means that all of the many types of work that it takes to build independent community-based press is done by someone who gives their time for the cause. You can help organize our training sessions in printing, graphic design, and writing. You can meet with community organizations that come to us with projects. You can get involved in doing printing, graphic design, and writing. We also need drivers to pick up donated supplies. We need cooks, we need people to help with publication, mail-outs, and distribution, and more. I will be at the literature table today after the program. Please stop by the table, leave your contact information, and find out how you can get involved. thank you for being here today and for celebrating International Women's Day with WPC.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vanetta. So please do stop by the literature table after the program, talk to Vanetta. I hope you're listening up for ways you can help, because we have a lot of work to do. We need a lot of people. So there are many ways you can get involved, and it is very important that you do. We must work together to build independent community-based press, and you can just look at what's happening right now in this country and the world to see why. Around this country, newspapers and newsrooms are closing left and right. More than 2,000 of the 3,143 counties in the United States now have no local newspaper. Newsroom employment has dropped by 26% since 2008. In 2008, there were about 114,000 total newsroom employees. That means the reporters, the editors, photographers, videographers. They worked in 5 different industries that produce news: newspapers, radio, broadcast, television, cable, and what they call other information services, which includes digital publications. By 2020, that number had declined to about 85,000, so a loss of about 30,000 jobs out of the newsrooms across our country. Most newspapers used to have what's called a labor desk, and they had labor reporters. Those reporters' their job was dedicated to reporting on workers' issues. That was their beat. Today, there is not a single labor reporter left in any newsroom in the entire United States. It doesn't exist. Yeah, boo-hiss. Yeah. So, and for the newsrooms that are left in our country, many are now owned and controlled by hedge funds and capital management firms. One of them, Alden Global Capital, is now one of the largest newspaper operators in the country. And that includes running the Daily News right here in New York City, owned by a capital management firm. So we must join together and build media production that both comes from and serves our communities. So please do stop by, see Vanetta after the program today about ways you can help, activities you can get involved in, campaigns you can get involved in. So now I want to introduce our keynote speaker, our final speaker for today. Diane Garrett is the president of our board of directors. And she is one of the founders of Women's Press Collective. So she has guided this organization since day one. And she's here to speak about some elements of our history as they relate to International Women's Day and the contributions of women to labor organizing. So please give a round of applause for Diane.
Okay, can everyone hear me? I'm too short for this podium. Okay, it doesn't feel like 40 years since we started building Women's Press Collective, and a lot has happened during those years. But today I want to speak about one aspect of our history, one that coincides with the genesis of International Women's Day, the role of women as leadership in the labor movement. As Lisa said, International Women's Day was inspired by the action of 15,000 militant women garment workers in New York City, taking to the streets on March 8, 1908. It's important to recognize that over 100 years ago, the demands of these women went beyond the strictly economic, to include calls for political and social change. So it's not surprising that 2 years later, Clara Zetkin, a German Socialist Party leader, chose to honor these women by proposing that the anniversary of their action be celebrated worldwide as International Women's Day. Working people around the world have embraced International Women's Day, which eventually won United Nations recognition in 1975. Nor is it surprising that International Women's Day is not officially acknowledged in the country whose working women gave birth to it. The United States does not like to celebrate the accomplishments of women or working people in general. Instead, the U.S. government watered down the significance of March 8th by declaring the whole month of March to be Women's History Month. WPC's orientation has been international from day one. Lisa already spoke about our genesis, going back to an international conference of agricultural and working women in 1981. The participants in this conference were organizations of women workers from throughout the Americas. In fact, most of the delegations came from Central or even South America, where in much of what was then known as the underdeveloped world, now acknowledged as the developing world, the majority of agricultural workers are women. This fact is still true for much of the world today, which is acknowledged under Goal 2.3 of the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development that was adopted in 2015 by all 193 countries that are members of the United Nations. And that states that by 2030, double the agricultural productivity and incomes of small-scale food producers, in particular women. Unlike the U.S. women's movement of the time, which was based on the demands of middle-class women for reproductive rights, equal pay with men doing the same jobs, and elimination of the glass ceiling that stopped them from advancing into corporate executive positions, the women from south of the border had a broader and more political perspective on their exploitation. They understood that their oppression was largely a result of foreign corporations that had expropriated the lands of subsistence farmers and indigenous communities, with the cooperation of their own governments, which relied on the economic and military aid coming from the United States. These women's goals included programs that would offer women small-scale, low-interest loans so they could buy the resources they needed to develop things like craft collectors, where they could use their skills to earn enough money to support their families. This concept of women's rights was clearly one that was not understood in the U.S., and there were no media outlets willing to promote such ideas. Women's Press Collective arose from a recognition of these absences. We realized that access to the ability to talk about our exploitation from our perspective was critical. The women who began WPC were coming into this as labor organizers. I started my organizing career with farm workers, then went on to organize domestic workers and home attendants, all categories of workers with the lowest wages and some of the worst working conditions. We understood that it was not just a matter of women lacking equal access to skilled jobs and equal pay on those jobs, but that women, especially women of color, occupy the lowest rungs on the economic ladder. While the majority of the lowest paid workers in the country are women, they share the same concerns as working class men, and neither is getting what they deserve or even what they need to survive. Working women would be the greatest beneficiaries of any effort to improve conditions for all people at the bottom of the economy. When WPC started in the early 1980s, the U.S. women's movement was agitating for opportunities for women to move into better-paying skilled jobs, still known as non-traditional employment for women. That includes the women in carpentry, in painting and other building trades, plumbing, electrical work, etc. One such job category was typesetting, a new field developed over the previous 10 to 15 years in the printing industry. Prior to this, type had been set by highly skilled typographers on what was known as hot type equipment, which used molten lead to create individual lines of type that had to be assembled by hand to create pages of text to be printed. Typographers were unionized, well paid, about $27 an hour, and almost entirely male. The major newspaper publishers, in an effort to save money, developed what they called cold type machinery that only required knowing how to operate a typewriter keyboard. Most people working as typists were women, who generally earned minimum wage, which was about $1.65 an hour in those days. So some of these women were given a few months of training, offered $5 or $6 an hour, and a whole new job category had been created. The idea was even sold to the women's movement as an economic advancement opportunity for women, obscuring the fact that this saved at least $20 an hour for the publishers and began the process that decimated the printing industry unions. It's down to one union today. There was another whole turnover about 20 years later when desktop publishing software allowed type to be set in position on individual computers, eliminating these typesetting jobs also. Now, women have actually been involved in printing in this country since colonial times. When printers set wooden type by hand on composing sticks, they preferentially employed women in these jobs because they were thought to have greater manual dexterity and attention to detail. And women workers were also considered more docile and less likely to cause problems on the job. There were almost a dozen women printers who ran printing businesses and published newspapers between 1638 and 1773, often taking over businesses and publications started by their husbands after the husbands died. Benjamin Franklin assisted several of these women to maintain the contracts of their husbands' printing businesses so they would continue to have a means of support. There were at least 6 women who served as official printers for various colonial state governments. During the 1800s, working women, who were usually young and unmarried, became active in labor organizing. The first factory strike in the United States was carried out in 1824 by 102 women weavers in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, protesting against long hours and wage reductions. A year later, the first women-only union, the United Tailoresses of New York, was formed. 1,600 of them went on strike in 1831, demanding fair wages. Throughout the 1830s, women mill workers in Lowell, Massachusetts, staged several labor actions, winning reduction of boarding house rent increases in 1836 and 1837. Women from 6 states in the shoe manufacturing industry formed the first national women's union, the Daughters of St. Crispin in Lynn, Massachusetts in 1869. In 1888, the Knights of Labor began accepting women as members. 20,000 women shirtwaist workers in New York City, on strike for a union shop in 1909, became known as the Uprising of the 20,000. In 1912, the United Brotherhood of Electrical Workers accepted female telephone operators as members. That same year, the IWW, the Industrial Workers of the World, led the first successful multi-ethnic strike, which became known as the Bread and Roses strike, of 25,000 textile workers, men, women, and children, in Lawrence, Massachusetts. Elizabeth Gurley Flynn was one of the leaders of this strike. Now, in recent years, we've seen a new wave of efforts to organize at facilities that historically rejected unions, including Starbucks and Amazon warehouses. At the same time, organized workers in many professions have gone on strikes demanding better pay and working conditions, especially for health protections on the job, but also addressing such issues as two-tier systems where new hires are paid at lower rates or get less benefits than older workers, or ensuring that retired workers retain their full benefits and pensions. In 2018 and 2019, there were more than 15 strikes of teachers and other school employees. Beginning on February 22nd, 2018, with West Virginia teachers striking successfully for higher pay for teachers and support staff, smaller class sizes, and demanding that the state's education budget be increased to provide more resources for their students. That strike lasted 2 weeks, attracted national media attention, and set off a series of strikes of educational workers in Arizona, Virginia, Georgia, Kentucky, Oklahoma, North Carolina, 4 cities in California, Colorado, South Carolina, and Tennessee. A total of 110,000 workers, mostly women, took part in these strikes. In 2020, workers in the healthcare industry staged protests and rallies to draw attention to the fact that they were not getting the PPE and other supplies they needed to protect both themselves and their patients during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. These efforts were headed up in New York by nurses and other city hospital employees, again, mostly women. Last year, there was another upsurge of labor organizing, with over 45 workplace strikes, including lengthy strikes against John Deere, Kellogg's, and by graduate student workers at Columbia University. This last one receiving almost no media coverage, except in the issue of Collective Endeavor you will receive here today. The need for a real alternative media has increased since WPC started in 1982, but the potential for building it is also greater. WPC is in the best position we have ever been in, with our newly completed press room full of newer and better production equipment. And there is a population of young people today who are dissatisfied with the direction they see the country and some parts of the world going in, but who are increasingly reaching for ways to change it. They see the value of independent media, and WPC can teach them how to create and use it. We need all of you here today to help us do that. That starts with everyone here today spreading the word. We have a lot to do, and the time in which to accomplish it is rapidly diminishing. The only thing we lack is enough people to do it. So I urge all of you to seriously consider making a commitment to work full-time with WPC for whatever period you can make available. A weekend, a week, a month, a year. It will be the best use you can make of that time. I want to thank all of you for being here today, for all you have done to help build WPC, and for all you will do to help us accomplish what we must continue to do in the future. Thank you.
Okay. So, as Diane mentioned, printing is really a cornerstone of how we build community-based media. Women have a long history in the leadership in the printing trades and as organizers. So, the press room and the machines themselves that we have are a cornerstone of our program. The women carpenters, women painters who are here today helped us build the physical structure to make a home for those machines so that we can have independent press. Some of our brother printers are here today too, and have been pivotal in getting the machines installed and functioning and getting our members and volunteers trained in how to use the new machines. So I want to thank a few people right now who have made major contributions to our press training program. So I want to start with Tim Dalton, who's here in the front row. He's a member of our board of directors of 350 years. He has very generously given his time and resources to help make our press training programs happen. And is Lenny Popkins still here? There he is, yay, okay. So Lenny is a press mechanic, because it's one thing to know how to run a machine, it's another thing to know how to fix it. Any car owner knows that one. So Lenny has very graciously volunteered his time to help with the mechanic work needed on our press. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate you being here. Also, two pivotal people who could not be here today, two press operators. We have a Ryobi press. People use tools who know Ryobi. They also make printing presses. So we have a Ryobi press. And two of the press operators, Jose Vega and João Silva, have been very pivotal in providing training to us for those machines. And so if you're listening remotely, just know we're thinking of you and thank you. If you have a chance to look through the copy of the new edition of our magazine, Collective Endeavor, you can check out the second article in it, and that lists many other graphic arts professionals as well throughout the tri-state area who have stepped forward to assist WPC in getting our new equipment in-house and online in the press room. Okay, So we are going to soon see our grand finale final performers for today, the Women of Baccala. I have one quick little thing to mention before they come on. I do want to take a quick minute and thank some of the small business owners who have helped this event, donating supplies. Delio and Belke Fernandez of Amigo Produce up at the tip of Manhattan in Inwood. They donated all of the produce for the potato salad and things we're going to be eating. We also have here in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, Vito Randazzo of Graziella's Restaurant, who's been supporting our effort for 10 years. He's donated ziti and mini rice balls. We have all of New York City covered. So we also have the Bronx, Tufo's Wholesale, contributed the cream cheese and other supplies for the, for the breakfast. And then again, back right here into Brooklyn, one of the food towns. It's a franchise. It's a family-owned place. Frank Whitty of the Food Town on Vanderbilt Avenue donated the sandwich platters. So we really appreciate the support. Yes. They need the food to power us forward for our organizing. So now I want to introduce the performance, which has been the grand finale for our International Women's Day celebrations for the past 9 years. We love them. Baccala, New York, is an all-women Afro-Brazilian samba percussion band whose music originates from the state of Bahia in northeast Brazil, and they are part of a musical movement that has spread to 30 international cities. Most chapters of Baccala being co-ed. The New York City chapter is all women. So since 2014, the Women of Baccala New York have been part of WPC's celebration. And Baccala does move members of our audience, in some cases, to dance. So if you are so moved, please feel free to stand up and dance. And so I believe Dina is going to come grace us with her presence with a few words before they all come out, and we are very happy.
Let's see. How are you, everyone? Thank you for coming out through strong winds, ice rain, and all of that. Pretty amazing. But you know who we are, right? And I'm sure you want to see some fierce, fabulous women with amazing drums and costumes hitting it right here, right? Okay, so as Lisa said, we're an all-women percussion ensemble that plays music from Bahia in northeast Brazil. The northeast of Brazil is kind of like the south of the U.S. It's where a lot of labor, forced labor was done, right? And in between the forced labor, the culture, the African culture, managed to survive. How did it manage to survive? It was carried and curated by folks who took it upon themselves, despite stigmatization, despite threat of violence, to keep it going, right? Who keeps the culture going? Often women. However, in a lot of cultures, they say that women are not allowed to drum, right? So Baccala is a global project, right? With a lot of bands like ours all over the world playing like similar music, same colors, same repertoire. However, there's only a few Baccalas that are women-led, and only one that's black women-led, right? Thank you. So this is very special because, you know, like I said, in some places women are not allowed to drum, and women are not even encouraged to drum. And right now at this moment, there are some women and girls who don't even think they can drum. They don't even think about it. But, you know, let me ask you a question. Can women drum? Yes. Can women drum? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So the music we play is composed by Miss Gonzalez, Mestre Gordo Eden Paulo, and Mestre Paulo Boy Tata, and Mestre Mario Palm, all master percussionists and leaders in and around Salvador da Bahia. Big shout out to them, right? Okay, y'all ready to hit it? Yeah. I need your help. Okay, we need a couple of things to happen. One, we gotta move this out of the way. Two, yeah. Two, I need some